Good morning, good afternoon, good evening YouTube. How is everybody? You join me on a glorious, what are we now, April day in the Kent countryside. It's still a bit chilly. What does that say? 13 degrees air temperature, so it's still not exactly warm. And obviously you've got to be aware of that with the old tyres. They're not going to be nice and warm and sticky. But today's video, slightly different to the norm. I was going to say I'm not going to do my waffle, but I am going to waffle because I'm going to do a quick review of how I think the 821 Hyperstrada, which this is, compares to the 1200 Multistrada, the non-S version, which I used to own. The reason I used to own it, we'll get on to in a little bit. Now this isn't going to be a facts and figures, but from memory, the Multistrada is something like 165 horsepower, 160 horsepower. It's around that figure. The Hyperstrada is a 110 horsepower. So obviously you're looking at about a 50 horsepower difference there. So roughly a third less horsepower. Weight-wise, dry weight on this is, I think, 181 kilos, give or take a couple. I think it's 181. And dry on the multi is 205. I did look at the figures before I left, so I'm relying on memory here, but yeah, something like that. Obviously wet figures are going to be a bit different. This I think was just on 200 kilo wet, which is a full tank of fuel, water or coolant, you know what I mean, and oils, which probably includes fork oil, to be fair. You know what the manufacturers are like when they pare down their weights. The multi is something more like 235, 240. So fully fueled up, as if you're going to go for a nice ride, you are something like a 35 to 40 kilo difference. Now that is a lot of weight. You know those water bottles that you have at work where you get yourself a water, if you still got that, if the firm you work for isn't so tight they've done away with all those, you know, water for work, whatever it's called. Those bottles are 20 kilos each because they're 20 litres. If ever you had to carry a couple of those up the stairs to get to an upstairs office, that's a lot of weight. That's not light, that's 40 kilos. Take 40 kilos off a motorcycle, you instantly feel the difference. Now I had a Multistrada 1200, say non-S, so the manually adjustable suspension, which I like. I like to be able to, go on, you go first. I like to be able to tweak my suspension and not rely on electronics to a certain degree. Electronics, modern electronics specifically, are amazing. If ever you've ridden a modern bike, you know, a modern Panigale, something like that, the electronics are out of this world. They really are. You know, your wheelie modes and your drift modes, and you can back it in, all that sort of stuff. This is more a back to basics manual bike. Would you call it a manual bike? It's more of a back to basics, no frills bike. It does have rider modes. In fact, let me pull over on my little bridge up here. Now the road's back open again. I came down here on the RS. When was it? It was a few weeks back, and the road was shut. They were doing some work. They were pumping out a gully. So let's pop up here. My normal little photo stop, and I will snap a photo. That'll do. Stick it into neutral. Before I switch it off, for the side stand, you probably can't see that, but I'm in touring mode, DTC on 4, ABS on 1. Don't know what that means, to be honest with you. Switch that off, let's have a bit of peace and quiet. This has got 3 rider modes. It's got urban, touring and sport. Urban, I think, reduces the power and ups the ABS and the traction control. That's a bit like wet on a lot of bikes. Touring is full power with different ABS settings. You can adjust them manually from memory, so that's probably what I went with. I can't remember why I did. and Sport is the same, but obviously reduces your ABS, reduces your traction control, and increases the throttle response. Now I find that a little bit too jerky for me, so I run in touring mode, which is fine. You've got a nice linear throttle response. I just find Sport a little bit too snatchy. So let's hop off. This is in my sort of touring guise at the moment, hence the silly little fly screen, and a bit wobbly there, and the sat nav, because I'm off to France in a few weeks. So Hyperstrada, which is basically a hypermotard, which you all know and I'm sure love. It's the same bike, but with a few extra bits. Principally pannier rack there, or pannier adapters there. This rack is aftermarket, it's a Jivy, and it is designed obviously for the Hyper. Bolts up underneath, because I do like a top box when I'm away, just to chuck my stuff in. You know, when you wander around town, it's nice to chuck your helmet, your gloves, and maybe a jacket in the top box. I know it's a bit old man, but I'm an old man, fuck it. Noisy pipe, I've got the standard pipe, but that's just a little bit fruitier, which I like. RNG crash bungs, we'll see if it goes over. Now the one of the other differences on the Strada as to the motard is this screen it doesn't have this bigger screen on the Hyper motard. Obviously you can just change this, it's a bit of plastic if you want the Hyper motard look, but other than that, from memory, everything else is the same. Now this is the 821, so this is the first of the water cooled, which has the 821 Testostretta motor, so 8 valve, say 110 horsepower, whatever it is, and it does what it says on the tin. I love it. Now I bought this, I had a 1200 Multistrada, and I went around Scotland on it, I went around Europe on it. Cracking bike, don't get me wrong. Oh, seat height wise, I'm a short ass. I got like a 36. I've got a 30-inch inside leg, and I am balls of my feet flat, sat on the seat. But obviously, if you pull up at a set of lights, I've got foot completely flat, other foot on the peg. But moving it around, manoeuvring it around. Oh no, I'm going to get stuck behind a trailer now. He's slow in. Oh, cool, he's a bit ambitious. Get the old trailer sideways with a road roller on. Right, let's go for a bit of a spin, shall we? See, these are the lanes where the Hyper is in its element, and these are my kind of lanes. You know, gassing it and flapping down these, even though they're a little bit bumpy and a bit rutted, it is just a perfect bike for these. It really is. You almost feel like sticking a leg out at times, you know, sort of backing it in. Not that I've got the talent to do that, but this is what it's for. Right, enough of that fun for the time being. So yeah, I had a 1200 Multistrada, and I did a lot of miles on it. Absolutely loved it, don't get me wrong, loved it, great bike. But it was times when it was fully loaded with all your kit that it was just a bit bloody heavy. It you know, with all your kit on you, probably, you know, 260 kilos, something like that. And being a bit shorter in stature, it was quite hard work to move around. So I did think about chopping it in for something else, but there was nothing else on the radar. And then I remembered the Hyperstrada. Now a good friend of mine, sadly no longer with us, Michael, he had one and he raved about it. He absolutely loved it, and he was a spirited rider. So the only thing about this is ground clearance, so I'll come back to that. Your toes do touch down. Oh, but it's just such fun. sensible. He had one, he raved and raved about it, so I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go. And I saw this one for sale. I can't remember where it was now. Never ridden one, but you know when a mate of yours, and you respect their opinion, says yeah they're good bikes, pretty much that was about it. I just went and bought it, so I got it transported down to me, took it out for a spin. The first thing that I noticed was the weight difference. It is clearly noticeable when you're pushing the two of them side by side. I don't mean just in the workshop, I mean on roads like this as well. When you're pushing on, and I had a Hyperpro kit on the front of the Multi, because the non-S Multi, the front suspension is notoriously soft, so I had a Hyperpro kit in, which did wonders for the handling. It really did. But even then, when you're pushing on like roads like this, you know, the front end did get a little bit sort of squirrely and jerky, whereas this, it's just lovely. So yeah, pushing it in the garage, huge difference. Just moving it in and out, just chuck it on the centre stand, because this has got a centre stand as well. I do like a centre stand, it just makes life easy for adjusting stuff. Oh, but look, yay! Yeah, adjust the chain, stuff like that. Just pushing it around, huge difference, as I said. But it's roads like this, roads that I enjoy, you know, blatting through, that you can feel the immediate difference, where it's so light and flickable compared to the Multistrada. Now I went out on the Hyper, I then went out on the Multi. I rode them back to back. I rode the same route, which funny enough was this route, or not this route, but this road was included. I got home, and within a month I'd sold the Multistrada. That was the difference it made for me. Now, pros and cons. Let's find somewhere to pull up, shall we? Yeah, this will do. Lovely. Now when you've got a few bikes, it's remembering where the side stand kick tab is. So, pros and cons. Pros for me are chuckability, the lightweight. I don't need more than 110 horsepower blatting through those lanes. I'm quicker on this than I was on the Hyper, on the Multi, by a long way, because this is just easier to ride. For me, you know, it's just an easier bike to ride. I was watching a 44 Teeth video the other day, and I can't remember what bike it was they were testing. It might have been one of the Chinese bikes on a track, and they had an absolute ball. There you go, centre stand. They had an absolute ball, because it was I can't remember what it was, 80-90 horsepower, but they were flat out everywhere. So yeah, for me, the performance of this is better for me than the Multistrada. I'm quicker on this, I'm safer on this. It just works. Lighter weight, fuel economy is probably the same. I think this does sort of like 50 to 60, which is what I got out of the Multistrada, to be fair, on the last touring trip I did. It comes with luggage. They're soft panniers that zip on and off. Zip open and clip on. They lock in place. And obviously I've got the top box on there, so you have got less luggage capacity. I sold my Multi with the big box, the big 47 litre Gibby box, and I went down to a 40 I think on this, just because the 47 looked fucking ridiculous. So you've got less luggage capacity on this, and I would say a little bit less comfort on a long trip. The seat is a little bit harder. Now, it's hard for me to say whether or not that's the same on a standard bike, because on my Multistrada I had a gel pad in the seat and it was so comfy. So it's hard to say yes or no, but I would still say the Multi is more comfortable. Seating position on this is very similar to the Multi. The Multi, I had 10mm risers. I don't need them on this. This feels nice. Chain, sprockets, tyres, They're going to weigh a little bit less on this, so it will be cheaper to run in that way. It's going to be cheaper to insure. Obviously the tax is going to be the same. Belt services, I think belt services 18,000 miles, something like that. I can't remember what it is on the Multi. You can look it up if you're worried. You don't buy a Ducati and worry about how much belt services are going to be, because it's part of the cost of running a Ducati. Negatives: power corrupts. If you like 160 horsepower, you will miss it. If you're on a track day and you want that power, you're not going to get it on that. What you will get is a nimbleness on that. I'd like to put the two of them back together, actually, back to back on a track. If it didn't have too many long straights, you'd be with a chance on that, without a shadow of a doubt. Bizarre. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, you've been with a chance. You know, a little twisty track. Brands Hatch Indy, something like that. This would be a hoot. You might have ground clearance problems, but you're doing a lot of bikes around Brands, especially around clearways, or not sports bikes so much, but you know, is that an adventure bike? An adventure bike's anything you have an adventure on, but you know what I mean. Luggage, less capacity, without a doubt. And the main thing is, if you do a lot of touring 2 up, unless you are short like me and the missus, if you're too big, well, big lumps, I don't want to be rude, but if you're larger in size, you're not going to fit on that. You're going to want a Multistrada all day long. Now I go out on this tour with my daughter on the back, no problems at all. Chuck the top box on, which has got the backrest. It's perfect. Would I want to tour Europe 2 up on it? I probably would, you know. Yeah, I would. In fact, I'm off to France, as I say, in a few weeks, just for a day trip with a few mates. But I'm going to give it its first foreign sortie, which should be a laugh. So, Hyperstrada versus Multistrada. If money comes into it, it's a no-brainer. Get one of these. Now, that's not why I bought this. I'm lucky enough to have a few bikes, so I do get to choose what I want to ride, and this to me beats a Multistrada. So I don't know what your thoughts are, whether you've ridden both, whether you've only ridden one of them, whether you've only got the Hyper, or you've got the other Hyperstrada, or the Motard, same bike, or you've got the Multistrada. I know snobbery comes into it sometimes. People like the bigger bike, don't they? But when you get to my age, you're not too fussed about that. I wouldn't do most miles on a CB250 RS if I was, would I? So anyway, I hope that's been of some help. Now I'm going to go for a bit of a waz round some lanes, and I'll see you all soon. Take care if you're riding. If you're not riding, watch these shite videos. If you are riding, stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.